All right, we are finally here. We are, I believe, episode 24. This will be the finale, and I'm going to break this finale into 3 parts, just because of the length of it. Anyway, this is one of the rare videos that I've actually spent some time, actually the only video I've actually really spent some time as far as organizing what I want to say, what we want to go over, and so forth. And I really want to spend the time to make sure that I give you a general overview of everything all 23 episodes have laid down with. Now, as much as the 23 episodes and as much information as there is in the 23 episodes, there's still so many things that I didn't include just for the mere fact that it's just so much information. But what I did make sure that I did add on to all 23 episodes was the main core, stuff that you should look for, concentrate, and work on. One disclaimer I definitely want to make clear about is the fact that as much as I describe it, as much as I say something to the T as far as how intricate it may be, in reality, until you know the feel, until someone sets you in place, what you're doing is basically eyeballing it at best. That's just the reality of it. Okay, so I just want to make clear, as best as I can describe it, as best as I could say it, as best as I could show it, till you just don't know what the feel is. You just don't know what the definition of relax is, what proper tension is, and so forth. So, like I said, try your best, and you know, like I've always said, if you have questions, email me. I have no problem answering any kind of questions regarding that. So, what we're going to break down for today is basically 4 things. We're going to go over the stance, we're going to go over the punch, we're going to go over just concepts of the first form, and finally we're going to go over shifting. Okay, and I'm going to break that down nice and slow for everyone to understand. The main thing that I want people to look at first is, let's look at the stance. Okay, I got my chalk, my board here, and I want you to understand one simple concept first. Okay, right there. I saw my back for a boring 20 seconds. The main concept I want you to understand is development and application are 2 different things. I've said that time and time again, but for people to really understand that, it takes a while. Development and application are not the same thing. If you ask me a certain question, you better ask, is this for development? If you ask me for a certain question, is this for application? So first, let's look at the stance overall, okay? When you think of the Ichikimi-ma stance, you see 4 basic motions to open up the stance, right? The cross. When you cross your body, you tuck in, open, and open, okay? What are we doing there? What is the whole purpose of that? And that's a lot of things that you're gonna have to, what I want to stress from when you're doing your training. The what, the how, and the why, okay? The what, how, and why. What are you doing when you do the Ichikimi-ma stance? How are you doing it? And why are you doing this, okay? You really have to boil down. I see it time and time again. A student will learn the 4 motions, blah, 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 open, open, and okay, I got this. Okay, you absolutely have nothing, really. You basically, the very beginning process of studying and learning is a monkey see, monkey do process. And most people basically get stuck at that point. They're like, okay, I got it. I open, close, I got it. Now what? What's next? What's next is you'll be 10, 20, 30 years later still at the same spot. And you'll be like, why doesn't this work? Okay? And remember these 3 things: what you're doing, how you're doing it, and why you're doing it. If we break down in a nutshell what we're looking for in the Ichikimi-ma, it's basically what? To learn how to control your center, to manage your center, to maintain your center. And if you look at the 4 motions, a lot of things that once I show an individual, here's the 4 motions to open up the stance, okay? Here's the 4 motions. I show you cross, pull, so forth, pull back, right? sit in, open, open. Now it looks like, wow, that looks great. You just did 4 motions. You basically did the Ichikima stance. Everything's thumbs up. No, because one of the things we said is what? You have to control that center. So imagine if I said in the beginning, if I asked most people to stand in place and get ready to do the first motion of the form, and I put a glass of water on that individual's head, guess what? At the very beginning, even before he does the motion, the water's already tipping off. He's either too much in front, too much in back. He has really no awareness of where he is. He's not even aware of if the weight from the heel to the ball of the foot is even. More than likely, most people are ending up sitting on the back of the heel. Okay? Now let's by chance say that he actually finds himself, like how I adjusted myself right now, in the very middle of the center at this point. Let's just say by chance you actually find that. What happens is if now the glass of water is steady upon your head and you try to do your next motion. Well, the next motion, I just spilled it. No awareness. I just did it anyway. Oh, next motion. Tuck in, bend. Okay, spilled it again. Spilled it again. Spilled it again. And then trying to find the center and try to make sure the water doesn't spill. That whole process right there failed. And it's common. I did that in the very beginning. Everyone goes through that process. It just is a lot of information for you to keep in mind and also to comprehend and control. Imagine you got to do every motion that you're doing. You got a glass of water on your head that's filled to the top and you don't want to spill it. That takes a lot of concentration, a lot of thought, and there's a purpose behind that. You are not losing control from one point to another. Okay, I don't go like this. I don't have my center at this point, and then from here, okay, I have my center, I tuck in, I lose, water spills, I try to regain it back. Water spills, try to regain it back. Water spills, try to regain it back. No, that is a no, no, no. You have to control that center every single time. Okay, so just think of it that way. When you're opening your motion in the Ichikima stance, there is a control factor every single step of the 1, 2, 3, 4 process. It is not from point A, gap, point B, regain control. All right? So that's really the main overview that I wanted to say regarding that. Now let's look a little bit also at the concept. Let's keep that. Let's look a little bit overall at the concept of what you're doing in Ichikima. Okay? Let me draw this. Here's the guy in the big head. Hopefully this comes out on video, otherwise I'll have to reshoot this again. Here's the guy straight. Tuck in, knee, foot. Okay? All right. What's the whole premise behind it? What are we looking for? What does it mean exactly to have the stance and have center? Okay. Number one ways to piss me off. Number one ways to piss me off is people referring to Yip Man's poster. Well, Yip Man's, tucked in like this, and you see him like here. You gotta remember exactly. You got to remember exactly what you're looking at. People are just saying, oh my God, look, he did it in the picture. That must be the way. Common sense, use common sense. I know it's easy to say, oh, well, this is common sense. Bottom line, if you don't have any, hopefully you get some. Okay, think of it, okay? If I want to take a particular structure, okay, let's say I want to take this structure. Let's make it a pen. I want to balance it in front, okay? Does it require more balance if the structure is purely vertical at this point and I hold it at this point? See how I hold it in between 2 points? How much muscle do I require to hold that point since it's vertical? Now, if it's leaning this way, is there more effort now on one side or both sides now that it's slightly crooked? There is. That's why any kind of building that you see, what's a simple structure? You build it vertical and straight. Easy to control the foundation that way. What happens if the foundation, if the main premise of the structure is crooked? You have to use muscle to hold that, okay? So if you look at it, excuse me, if you look at it, the main premise is when the head is being here at this point, I want that stretch, the stretch right here in the neck area, okay? And then when I actually do the tuck in, okay, and we'll talk a little bit detail about the tuck in here. When I do the tuck in here, I want that stretch again. These two processes of the head being stretched up and the body being tucked in or tucking in from the L4, L5, that's what creates that vertical premise. Okay, you want that vertical premise. You want that vertical structure. You don't want this. This is, I don't know what this is. This is the interpretation that, okay, I'm gonna thrust my hip here and this hip will make it strong. I get it. I understand why people think that's strong. Because I can mimic the same motion. I have my hip thrusted here, and then when you push against me, I'm squeezing with my hip in order for me to hold that stance. Wing Chun has a natural, beautiful look to it, okay? If this looks like a sickly old man person who has bad posture, I want to maintain that vertical, and then what? Once I can figure out how to hold this vertical in place, here's the toe, here's the heel, I want to find out exactly where I can put that in between to keep it balanced. Once you can do that, once you can achieve that concept or that structural hold, guess what? That's actually what the stance is. That's actually what having center is. That's actually what it totally means, okay? And each step process in order for you to do that is what makes it strong. See, when you tuck in like this, when you thrust in and you have your hunch in like this, in this motion, there's a lot of muscle being used by that. You could say I'm relaxed, but when the force actually comes in, the force will not run properly through you. Okay, you'll actually have to adjust the structure to hold it. You'll actually feel a squeeze within that structure. When the structure is actually correct, okay, and you have that vertical and you're in between the toes, the toe and the heel, guess what? When the force actually comes in, it actually goes through naturally through the ground and then bounces back out. Okay, I don't have to do anything. I'm in this position here, and he pushes in. You don't see me adjusting myself to that point. If I have the structural hold in place, and he pushes against this point here and presses it, guess what? The structure automatically adjusts, not me having to put extra oomph into that. Okay, if you can understand that, if you can see the logic of being vertical and holding yourself vertical, that's very key. That's very key, and actually that's the number one thing. Bad posture. If you tell me, well, how's that guy's Wing Chun look? I just look at his overall structure. I look at his structure and right away you can tell the truth. I don't care. He says he's done it 15, 20, 30 years. I look at his structure, you can see right away. It doesn't lie. Okay, so that's the main idea. Main idea that you're looking for within the stance. Okay, don't misinterpret the hip tuck. The hip tuck is not you thrusting this way, going this way. Hip tuck is like when you're here, you're at the edge of the chair, I'm sitting down. I'm not falling off that edge of the chair. Okay, so if you understand that idea, you are on the right step for doing the stance. You won't end up like 99% of the people who end up on the ground because they're in the Yichiki Ma point. Okay? Shoot, I'm talking a lot. Anyway, one last premise behind the stance, and then you know, a lot of this is also more preview into the second season that I'm going to do, the more intermediate season regarding this. Application and development. Remember, development is everything's perfect, everything's set. I want to be in a certain place to actually know how to hold it. Application, guess what? I'm not going to be in the Yichiki Ma stance like this, holding it here. Okay, I'm not going to be here in a Yichiki Ma stance saying, okay, let's fight. All right, I already have control of my center. I can stand naturally like this, any way I want, or like this, any way I want. Because what? If you're in control and learn how to develop your center, you can manipulate it and move it any way you want. Because you know the actual 0 point of that technique. All right, so there's no set way to stand once you already know how to control that center. All right, but if you see yourself, it's a fight situation, you see yourself going, let's fight, you are toast. You are toast. You are trying to apply a developmental process of learning how to control your center in an actual fight situation, you are toast. Okay? All right, so that's our overview on the stance. Next thing we're going to talk about, and I might have to add these together some more, is let's talk about the punch. Okay, the punch. When you look at the punch, all right, the punch motion, I'm going to go here. This is basic punch motion. Punch, 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 punch. Now, ask yourself, you're doing the punch. Why am I doing this punch? Am I learning exactly how to knock somebody out? Am I learning actually how to punch somebody with this? And the answer, if you think about it, is 100% no. That is not what you're doing. I'm fully extending, fully stretching the technique out. Now you remember the things I said. What are you doing? How are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Okay. The purpose of this punch motion right now has nothing to do with actual application. I am not going to be fully extended when I do that. Okay. I'm not going to be fully extended when I shoot out the punch. Okay. Now you might be saying, well, why would you do that then? Why am I developing such a motion? Because if you know exactly the why am I fully stretching out? The why tells you to what? You need the development of the stretch. Why is the stretch so important? Because without loosening the ligaments and joints within the arm itself, you will not be able to explode the power. Okay, understand that correctly. If you practice your punches like this, okay, you're basically learning how to squeeze, nice and slow, squeeze. I'm learning to stretch. I want to stretch, I want to loosen this up, I want to be able to actually explode the technique. Okay, that is the development process, stretch. Now, make sure you understand that, stretch. How do we exactly stretch it, right? The how. How is maintaining the squareness. If I maintain the squareness at this point, remember, in order for a rubber band to be stretched, what happens? You have to have two sides to stretch it out. I hold this end and I hold this end, now I can actually stretch it out. So a lot of times when you hear that concept, okay, stay square. Stay square means this base here stays square. Why does this base have to stay square? Because imagine if I'm pinching this side, and this is the one part of the rubber band, and this side is the other part. Guess what? If I lose the squareness like this, okay, see I'm square here, okay? If I lose the squareness here, you see me turn. Or if I'm in this direction, I lose the squareness here, you see me turn. I basically, in other words, saying, if I'm pinching this part of the rubber band, I'm letting go every single time. I want to make sure here's square. I hold this in place, and guess what? Boom. I can actually stretch the motion, stretch the motion, stretch the motion. Okay? That is what you're looking for the overall development, to stretch the technique. Okay? Now, do not misinterpret it. Anything has to find the balance within it. Okay, a lot of times you hear the concept, oh, just relax, just relax. Well, what's relax mean? Is this relax? No, that's too relax. Is this relax? That's too tense. It's got to be like the three bears. You got to just find just the right porridge, right? The right balance in between. So if I find this is the right balance. So what I mean by that is when I'm stretching here, look, I'm stretching, this is just the right amount of stretch. If I go like this, it's like, man, if I overstretch it more, that's better. That means I'm getting more stretch from that. No, overstretching also leads to tension. So you want to find the balance of that. By doing this, you're basically using more tension, more muscle. I want to find this 0 point here where I hold it, the most neutral position possible, and I stretch. See how I'm stretching the motion? Stretch. And look how my technique's going straight. Okay, I'm going straight with this technique. Okay, the last thing you want to do in any kind of training that you do, I've said over and over again, do not hurt yourself. A lot of times people go like this and hammer. This is common. I've had to correct a lot of people from other lines before not to hurt them. And then the first thing they say is, I have a lot of elbow pain. Well, guess what? Just look at the motion. You're popping your elbow every single time. I'm going for a simple motion. Stretch. 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 Okay? So that is the main thing you're looking for. When you're working with the punch. Develop the stretch motion first so you can actually explode and relax the techniques. Because why? The punch is the mother motion. All your hand techniques, whether it's tan, bong, lap, whatever hand technique you're doing is based off the punch mechanics. If your punch looks good, your hand technique looks good. Okay? So that's why make sure you don't want to do something where if you're still at this point where you're tight, well, guess what? You got to learn how to actually relax it and get to the stretch point. Okay, so don't develop the punch when you're doing it looking for power. That is not exactly what you're doing. You're just bottom line looking for the stretch. All right? Okay, so we covered, and you remember, these are main points that I wanted to go overview in addition to the stuff I talked about earlier in the series. Probably running long now. See, the average YouTube person usually gets bored about a minute into the video. That's the usual thing. But I'm here not for the average viewer. I'm here for the person who actually wants to understand and learn and really comprehend what it is behind Wing Chun. Okay, so let's get into stance, not stance, first form. First form. Let's just break it down. I'm not gonna go over the entire first form because I've already chunked in about 15 minutes worth of talk right now. First form, okay, the development is Silam-Tao, little idea, one concept at a time, one thought at a time, okay? And basically you're looking at the entire form. I broke it down into 3 sections in the video. Think of exactly what you're developing for each one, okay? So we look at the first section. And you remember, this is from a beginner's perspective that I want you to comprehend first. But beginner's perspective is important because that's the core foundation. If you don't understand the core foundation, you won't get the next process or the next series that I talk about and so forth. So the first section, we're looking at the first section. You see it all the time. People are going slow, 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 so forth, okay. Why? You know, I can copy the motion where it looks like, wow, that guy's going really slow. But what's the point? Why you go slow? Why are you developing that? Is it just to be like, damn, that guy's really freaking intense. He's concentrating. He's really doing, you know, look at that first form. Because a lot of times, guess what? People are going slow just for the hell of it. Just for the hell of it. So look at the most important thing that you got to remember about the first section is the development of the Tan, Wu Sao, and Fuk Sao motion. Okay, Tan, Wu Sao, Fuk Sao motion. That's the most important thing you're trying to develop there, and that is the actual structural hold and line that's involved with that technique. Okay, what does that mean? All right, if you look at the overall structure. Okay, so you have a Tan Sao, okay, you have the Wu Sao, and you have a Fuk Sao, okay. If you look at this, this is my triangle. From here to here, this is a triangle aimed at my point. If you see it from this perspective too. Notice, in this triangle, within this triangle are my boundaries that basically say, this is the strength of the technique. If you stay within this home, you can apply anything without use of muscle. Okay, when you extend past that, you're going to have to use some muscle involved in that, or you actually have to make some adjustments with that point. Okay, but if I talk about the whole process of Silam-Tao, we're going to be here for another 8 hours. So let's go over the overview. So when we look at Tanza, we're developing lines. You know how they always say, well, look at the lines. Look at the immovable elbow line that you're doing it. The immovable elbow line doesn't mean a rigid elbow that can't move. The movable elbow line is that the elbow is set within the boundaries of the triangle and it makes adjustment depending on whether it's Tan, Wu Sao, or Fuk. That's all it means. Okay, it's not something where, okay, my elbow is locked in place, it will not move in place. That's not the case, okay? You are developing 3 structural motions within the Silam-Tao first section. When you look at the Tanza motion, okay, when you look at the Tan coming out, the line is coming in. The elbow line is called inside line, all right? Ken, come in. Oh, shit. All right, I'm too lazy to edit that, so Ken just walked in, all right? So anyway, we're looking at the inside line. That's the inside line. What does it mean, inside line? Look at the elbow adjustment. Here's the base neutral point. When I do the Tanza, this is the inside line. Look how my elbow makes it adjust structurally for it. And I'm not gonna go over detail why, but just basically right now, that's the inside line that you're taking. Now, when I go to Wu Sao and I shift it, look at my elbow. Look how it makes a little adjustment and goes to the outside line. So from inside to outside line. Now, that's a really good tell to see if someone can actually hold a structure. Here, look, from the inside line to the outside line, that's my Wu Sao. See how my body's still supported by it. But if I just go a little like this, it looks not much, look, just a little like this, guess what? I have to use more muscle because look, it's outside my line. See how I adjust it? See how I adjust that outside my body area within the base? So here's inside line, outside line is just a mirror, a little movement adjusted, and I'm there actually supported there. A little too much, and guess what? I actually have to use muscle at that point. All right, so that's what you're developing. Inside line for Tan, outside line for Wu Sao. And Fuk Sao is what? The neutral line point. So transitioning from inside to outside line is Fuk Sao. Okay? So that's the main thing that you really have to be aware of as far as the body support when you're doing your hand technique. If you understand that concept, and you understand how that stays within the base of your triangle, you really starting to get further along in first form. Now, in the second section, why are we doing the second section? You see a lot of boom, boom, two hand motions. And that's exactly the main development that you're looking at. You're looking at two hand motions going in the same direction, different angles, going from high to low, open and close, right? You're looking at basically from here, two hands in the same direction, two hands working together, opposite, coming in, going forward, coming back, and so forth. So that's really your development. You're looking to actually use two hands. Think about it this way, a lot of times when you see Chisao, when you see people Chisao, they have a really difficult time trying to keep this balance. You see one person going forwards, one person coming back, and so forth. And think of it, you're drilling into him. Motion has a drill technique to it. So how can you drill if one side's uneven? Because if one side's uneven, you're not going to drill towards the target point. You're actually going to drill off to the side. That's why learning how to balance the hand on 2 points is very pivotal. Okay? Now, if you look at it, in our line we have double punch. Double punch. I never really explained double punch because I just find it amusing at people's comments on it. But I'll actually spend some time talking about the double punch. The double punch, why do we do the double punch? It's two hand motions going at the same time. And again, what's the concept? Development and application, okay? People are like, well, why would you ever do a double punch? I'm not. Think of it, I'm trying to go for even power. Learn how to balance even power this way. If you look at, understand Wing Chun philosophy, one shield and sword. Okay, so why would I have to do two swords at the same time to attack you? One hand is a control hand, the other hand is what? An attack hand. So the double punch has a development going forward, even power at the same time. You see people who practice or understand the double punch, their roll motion is even. You don't see people who practice the double punch, guess what? Roll motion is uneven. They can't hold one side or the base of the other. Okay, so understand that. Development, application. I don't apply double punch as a technique against Wing Chun theory. But development wise, yes, very important to actually use that. All right, finally the third section. The third section we're looking at basically is what? Third section is what? You see 1, 2, 3. You're looking at a triangle going from 3 motions. You're looking at one motion. Side, side, forward. Forward, down, up, circle, forward. Up, down, forward. These are basically different angles that you're noticing that you're covering the triangle area. And notice I stay within this base every single time. If you look at the first time, Kausa within the base. Outside jet within the base. Palm in the base every single time. That is something I'm focusing every single time when I'm doing the third section. So if you break down each individual section, it has a particular goal. It has a particular development that you want to do. If you can understand those processes, what you're looking to develop, you'll go a long way. All right, anyway, we're going to add one more to it. We're going to talk about the shifting. And I'm going to have to adjust the camera first before we do that. All right, this is the last part of the last section of the first part finale, and this is dealing with the shifting concept. Okay, in the video we talk about how to shift, right? We're basically going from one point to another. Okay, the main point and emphasis that I want to go over with the shifting aspect, obviously you want to make sure you're vertical. Okay, maintaining the vertical is actually a very difficult process. More often than not, the most common thing that you'll see is if you are sitting down where you're tucking in, a lot of times with the shift, you end up sticking the butt out. So right then and there, that is usually the #1 culprit as far as difficulties with shifting. But I want to stress something that's going to happen in the very beginning. No matter how much I say this to every student, even myself, you have to go through this process. People shift on momentum. Okay? Do not shift off momentum. Momentum shifting looks like this. If I'm here from one position to another, I'm going. Okay? Wow, looks great. You look vertical, you're shifting back and forth, you got the windshield wiper going, everything's parallel. The problem is, like we said from the very beginning, if you understand one principle of Wing Chun, it's universal, it applies to everything that we do. Shifting by momentum means from point A, let's say I have control. I shift by momentum, to point B, I'm trying to regain the control back. So what's the problem with that? That means in between the process from point A to B, if I get hit at any point, I'm going to topple over. Okay? That is the number one thing you have to remember. If you shift with momentum, and you're going to shift with momentum in the very beginning because you're trying to figure out how exactly do I go from point A to B and actually control this whole process without using the momentum of the technique. All right? Because momentum makes you feel good. Momentum is like, man, I really got this. Right? But I guarantee you two things. One, when I was doing that, most of my heel's in the back. Most of my weight is in the back of the heel. Okay? Two, I'm not controlling it from point A to B. I'm going from point A and hoping to regain it back at point B. So, with that in mind, remember, if I have control of my center and I control it from this point to point, or here's point A, when I start shifting, the legs are actually involved in this process. The legs, in the sense, are actually, I wouldn't say push, because if you look at it from that perspective, you're thinking of it athletically. The legs are there to support, not push. Like if you look at how an athlete does things, they're pushing to get their motion moving. We're simply trying to have the vertical in place and maintain that throughout the entire process. All right? If I can control that vertical, and then actually have my legs actually involved in that, then from point A all the way from point B, regardless of what I'm doing, I have full control of that technique. I have full control of the center every single time. Okay, I am not gapping from point A to B. Okay, just like how I talked about in the very opening of the first section, Yichiki Ma. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 steps to open it, you are in full control of that. Shifting again. I don't lose the tension within my body to hold that. Okay, tension loss usually results in this. Look at my knees here. If I'm here, I end up losing my tension and then I end up leaning on one side. Okay, because in the beginning you're trying to figure out, how am I turning this? How else do I turn it without relaxing the tension here? But you got to remember that there's a certain amount of tension to hold it correctly, and tension and not in the sense that I'm holding it and squeezing it. Tension in the sense that it's just the right amount for my body to actually react and to be controlled. If you can understand that concept, how I'm actually controlling it, making sure I don't lose that tension, then you won't see yourself bouncing up and down. You won't see yourself trying to regain the control of it. I feel my center. I have the cup of water on my head. I turn. When I turn, I'm controlling it every single time. All right? Anyway, that is probably the number one point I want to make. Do not shift by momentum. Momentum shifting will leave you confused. It'll be basically, okay, I'm shifting. It looks okay. How come I can't do anything with this? I keep falling off from this point. All right? And finally, the last point I want to make for this regarding the shifting is what? Shifting is, once again, what's our number one word? Development. Okay? It is a developmental process. Someone's coming in to move into attack. I'm not shifting in place and doing this. I'm not saying, shift. I'm not doing that. If you look at all the footwork involved in Wing Chun, there's 16 footwork with how we do it. Footwork is nothing more than what? The main core of the shifting is what? Here's my Yichikimi-ma stance. I want to be able to turn it. I want to move it first and rotate it and maintain the center. Now with all the other footwork, I want to move it forward, backward, side, side, left, right, up, down, whatever, and still maintain control of center. That is the development that you're looking to get. Okay, so it always amuses me when someone sends me a link and says, oh, look at Wing Chun versus karate, or Wing Chun versus Aikido, or whatever, Wing Chun versus grappling. And then I'm like, which one's the Wing Chun? Because all of a sudden, next thing I know, here's this supposedly Wing Chun guy, and he's like this. He's hopping up and down. Well, what's the point? How can you possibly use structure if you're hopping up and down like that? All right? Anyway, we got 2 more to finish off this entire series. Hopefully this makes sense. If you have questions, actually definitely send me email or join us on Facebook and also the Twitter. Twitter is something I just started setting up. People have requested that. I'm not so heavily into it. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to use it and make it efficient instead of another social network that's wasteful, like Facebook. But anyway, hopefully this helps, and part 2 and 3 are coming up.